We do have one item, we didn't get to the number 9, the last, the budget itself. So, Sean?
Yep. I'll just continue. We'll just wrap up item 9 here, and that is what is before you that you have in your packet and also up on the screen is a draft. I want to underline draft implementation budget. You will actually notice that the budget that was included in the packet has a total of $2.5 million for startup costs. The budget that you have up on the screen actually is a little less at $2.293, I believe, and that's because, apologies, I went back and sharpened the pencil and realized that in this budget that's in the packet, we had included all of the customers for enrollment rather than a phasing strategy, which we discussed here just a few minutes ago. So that reduces your upfront customer notification costs significantly. And you will see that that's, the marketing and customer enrollment costs for the program are pretty high. So I won't go through all of this in great detail unless you want me to, other than to say this estimate is consistent with the estimate that was included in the technical study. However, what we did is we went back and reallocated some of the line items to be consistent with current practice, current experience. I will say that Lean Energy and I am working with multiple CCAs in PG&E territory right now as they're going through this exact same process, and so I'm pretty familiar with what things are costing these days. And this is the amount that would be sought in the startup line of credit that we'll be discussing in the next line item. So this is just the implementation budget. It does not include the cost of power. It does not include data management and call center services. And the reason for that is that most data management companies do not begin charging fees to the agency until the program is operational and revenues have commenced. So they don't begin accruing expenses until you go operational. That's why they're not in this implementation budget. It does not include, this budget does not include what we call the internal soft costs or the staff costs that have already been incurred by the County of Santa Cruz and will be incurred by the county and others that choose to help out through this implementation phase. It does not include debt service. That would become part of your operations budget. A full operations budget will be brought back to this board once we've figured out what your load is, and we were just discussing that relative to market pricing, rates, and all that good stuff. That comes later. This is simply what the hard costs, we anticipate the hard costs will be to get your program and your agency up and running. Yes, sir.
So the staff report recommends that the CEO and treasurer in place to review this budget. I assume it's the budget that you're referring to. The budget.
Correct.
Yes. But and then it says return to the board for final budget approval. I'm wondering if the intent there is to return to the operations board and then subsequent to the policy board for recommendation, because I think this issue is a very important one. We struggled with a few of the points here with credit line, et cetera, and the budget. So I think it'd be, I would suggest that if that's not the intent, that we make that the intent, the
yes.
operations board, the unit.
So the plan of action is, and a lot of this is going to be contingent upon all of your goodwill to meet over the summer. Because that is another reality that we're now becoming aware of when people go out of town and all that. So the intention here is that we wanted to serve this up as an informational item today, just so you know what it looks like and the components of what implementation looks like. And then the interim CEO or permanent CEO hopefully comes on ASAP by July and takes a look at this as well. Goes back to the operations board. It comes back before a joint policy and operations board meeting for approval. But ultimately, the policy board has jurisdiction over the budget. So the policy board would approve this, as well as later on approving really what is the bigger deal, which is your operating budget for year 1 through.
So do we have to wait till the CEO and managers review it, make sure?
Yes, it doesn't require.
Moving along, so we're trying to get this up and running and organized and staff.
Sure. There's lots of stuff that happens parallel to this, so that is possible. It is not an action item for today, however.
Any question?
Mr. Chair, quick question. I see that we do have some monies set aside for advertisements and other stuff. We really want to reach out to all three of our communities. Like, if we can pick vendors, can we make sure that's within those three counties and maybe, distribute the money to all three counties? I know because we are a cooperation of counties and cities, we kind of want to show good faith with our budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions? I'm very interested in making sure that the public has access to what we're doing, so clearly there's some public here today. And I also noticed that we are being videoed. It's my best side. And I want to thank Ginny for making that arrangement and for Armstrong Productions for being here to do this. I'm wondering, I don't see that that is perhaps contemplated in this budget. I'm not sure how much we should allocate, but it seems to me that having the policy board and the meetings of the operations board videoed, I don't know if it's possible to stream them, but certainly to archive those meetings so that the public who's not able to be here in person can follow the discussion would be great if that could be done.
That is contemplated in the board meeting expense line item, which got bumped to $15,000 in anticipation of those kinds of changes.
Okay, super, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry if this is nitpicking. On the advertising campaign, it's 250 grand for print, social, paid, and earned. And I'm just suggesting that maybe those be parceled out so we know how much is print, how much is social, earned media. It doesn't really cost you anything. But it'd be nice if that was parceled out in the future. And my other question is, I don't see advertising and community outreach on the timeline, so I want to ask, when does the advertising and community outreach officially begin?
Great question. So a lot of it has commenced, and so the next big public push will depend on getting your vendor or vendors in place who will support that, and generally, we like to have them in place and really ramping up the advertising 6 months prior to program launch is the estimate. Could start earlier if you wish.
And I see I was incorrect. It is shown on the Gantt line. It's November of this year, so I'm sorry about that. Between now and November of this year, when the advertising campaign has a big start push, will there be materials coming from staff that we can begin sharing with our communities if we have community events between now and then, so that we're all on the same page, giving the same messages, same answers to questions, and hopefully getting people excited about the rollout, but using proper information to do that?
Yeah, so what's critical here, sorry to harp on it, but it's critical that you get your line of credit in place in order to begin to do all this stuff. So first we gotta get money in the bank in order to then get all of this out. But there is some good collateral we already have, and one of the very next things will be to update the website and all of that. So unfortunately, there's a linearity to this that has to start with capital.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, we will move on to item number 10, discussion of the interim CEO position and authorization to proceed with the recruitment process. Ahita Patel from Santa Cruz County will make that presentation. And if everybody could speak up as loudly as they can, so maybe stand up as you're speaking, that'd be fine. You don't have to, but go ahead.
I think you'll be able to hear me. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and we are looking forward to working with you all. So this morning, we have 2 staff recommendations before you. The first is to authorize a search for an interim contract CEO, and the second is to appoint a subcommittee of the operations board that will evaluate candidates and make a recommendation to the policy board. So just to check, can you all hear me? Yes. Okay. The approach that we are suggesting here is to hire the interim contract CEO is based on 2 elements. It's the timing and the resources that are currently available. The timing is very critical, as you just talked about. The goal is to serve the customers by the spring of 2018. And Santa Cruz County has indicated that they would like to take a step back in the daily leadership. So we do need to bring somebody in very quickly. An interim CEO could be here by mid-July, August, because we would fast track a process that allows that. A permanent CEO search could take up to 5 months. In terms of resources, the permanent CEO salary would also need to include some benefits, and currently this agency is not set up to offer retirement or healthcare options. If we stop to also put that into play, there could be a further delay. So a contract CEO is really salary, and Santa Cruz County does believe that they could fund that much easier. So those are the two critical elements, timing and resources, that we do need to consider. Should your board decide that you do want to embark on the interim contract CEO process, what we think that would look like is we would put out a request for qualifications. We would do a 2-week posting in mid-May, May 15th to May 26th. The posting would include publications in local and professional organizations. We would also make an effort to outreach to individuals who have utility or CCA experience. In early June, we would like to have the subcommittee evaluate the letters of resume and the interest letters, and then we are planning for a recommendation to the policy board on July 5th. And meanwhile, in the staff report, what we have suggested is that an interim contract would be in the range of $20,000 to $25,000 per month. And that was a preliminary number that we came up with, but Santa Cruz County will do a complete salary survey to land on a number that would be appropriate. So with that, I would conclude my comments. I ask Sean, is there anything you need to add?
One thing, the July 5th date, I think it's going to be a problem with coming right after July 4th.
It could be a problem for me, Mr. Chairman. It could be a problem for me.
And we'll discuss that, the date. I mean, I don't know if we can move it. Can we move it up to the end of June? I know that everybody's in their budgets, hearings and all, but I think they're around June 28th or 9th or something like that.
So I think the 5th was just something we gauged based on when we thought you were meeting again. So certainly I think we can come up with something that would work for
Okay.
everyone.
I'm thinking June 28th or 9th, if people keep that in their mind, but we'll go from there.
See if we can
Go
make
ahead.
that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible.
Mr. Go ahead.
So, I support staff's recommendation. I do think that there's one minor caveat or thing I would like to point out is that I think the JPA calls for a nomination from the operations board for CEO. So I think, staff would like to have a subcommittee of operations to help kind of advise the recruitment process. We can talk about that, but I think ultimately the recommendation for a CEO needs to come from the full ops board, and it
That is
doesn't
the
come
idea.
from just a subcommittee.
Sorry, that is
Yes,
absolutely
that would be the idea.
Okay? Yes.
I had a question about, you said you're going to be open for 2 weeks, period.
A request for qualifications, yes.
I mean, understand we're trying to get this hired really quick. That seems really quick to survive from my experience, that to get the outreach that you wanted to do, unless you're putting stuff out there ahead of time. Because it's critical that we get out in all the appropriate publications and get the outreach out there, and I'm just raised that 2 weeks seems really tight.
It does, and I would assume that if your board were to approve this, our work begins this afternoon. And the goal would be to line up those postings, to delve in and figure out where we would do all of that and immediately do it. And again, that is actually the reason why there is that. We need to decide if we want to do the interim or a permanent, because if we were doing a permanent, it would be quite a large surge, and it's exactly what you said. There's so much to do. So in the contract situation, we believe that we could do an adequate posting for 2 weeks, a very aggressive outreach, and we could get it done. Of course, if at the end of those 2 weeks, we did not feel that we had enough letters of interest or resumes, then we could always consider that. But this is really just the initial approach to keep everything on a timeline, because it is so critical. With Santa Cruz stepping back a little bit, you do need that leadership immediately.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
could I suggest an alternative approach? That we contract with one of the counties or the cities to be the host agency for the CEO. That way you can hire an individual, you can offer them the full public sector benefit package, healthcare, PERS, and so forth. And then for the interim, we hire an engineering firm. And so we get a firm on board, much like you hire a contract attorney firm to be your city council member. And that way, we can start immediately both with getting an engineering firm on board to be your interim CEO, and then we can immediately begin advertising for a permanent CEO and offer them the full public sector package. So you could probably have the permanent individual on board in about 6 months. And then once that individual's on board and they set up all the infrastructure for the JPA to hire the employees and so forth, then the contract with the city or the county could end and they could become a full-time employee of the JPA.
How would
Couple
that-
thoughts.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, yeah.
I think definitely worth discussing. There are a couple things embedded in that, and there's some decisions that your board will have to make. One that you mentioned is whether or not your CEO and frankly your staff will be hired on as public employees. So what other CCAs have done, have, instead of going with a defined contribution model, which is sort of a public pension, typical model, excuse me, defined benefit, thank you. Instead, they've gone to a defined contribution, thank you for correcting me, a defined contribution model so that A, the CCAs are not paying pension, and also B, that they are able to recruit fairly high-level talent at more private sector salaries, because you're having to compete in order to get talent through the door. So that's a decision that hasn't yet been made by this board. So that's one element there. And the only other thing I would say is an engineering firm could certainly respond to an RFQ that was put out, whether that was 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I think the idea here with the interim is to have somebody who really understands, hopefully with CCA experience, startup experience, to be honest, and it's not me. But just have someone who can really bring all of the leadership to bear when Santa Cruz County needs to step back, is what I understand. And that gives time for the longer term permanent CEO to be posted and for all of that to happen. So this is, to underline, an interim situation. Could be filled by an engineering firm, could be filled by an individual. Is that responsive?
Yeah, and I think the point whether or not we want to have this be a conventional public sector and offer those benefits, I think we should make that decision soon.
Yeah.
Because that's going to affect that. And
It
then
won't
just-
affect the
Yeah,
contract
yeah, yeah.
employee.
But the contract employee, it's very difficult to get somebody to move here for 6 months. They've got to rent a house, so you're going to have all those costs associated with it that may be somewhat mitigated by having those are.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I like what Lou's saying, but I would also recommend or suggest that we look at doing an interim. If we're only doing an interim for 2, 3, 4 months, just contract with another CCA or at least look into that, because the expertise is already there. And you're not going to get somebody to move here, like Lou said, for 2, 3, 4 months for an interim. But if we can do an interim contract with another CCA just temporarily to get us going, I think that might be a good idea to look at.
Mr. Chair, do we have anybody in our staff right now that can take over the responsibility temporarily?
Break in.
Volunteer right here.
I'm ready to do it. No. I think this is a very technical area that we need somebody with some very good experience in the energy field. And there are individuals out there who are doing this consulting. So there are engineering firms and there are individuals who would be willing to come for, in the Bay Area, and we could do a 6 month to a year contract for that interim, however long it takes us to get a permanent individual on. And so that's why we were suggesting doing this interim contract, because of the expertise involved, and also that it's going to be more than a full-time job. This is going to be, somebody's going to have to be, quite a bit of time doing this field.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, I would echo Carlos's point. I don't think we have time to waste. I have full faith in the ability of the county of Santa Cruz to execute on this, not to mention our consultants and our team that's really kicked this off. I think there's qualified people out there that'll jump on this enthusiastically. This is the opportunity of a lifetime for a professional that they can handle these kinds of things. If we come up short of qualified folks, then we'll come back and we'll look at other options, whether that's to contract with an existing CCA or a county or hire Ray Corpus to do it. Whatever the case, there's other alternatives, but I think this is the right track.
Okay.
I just have a quick, and I agree with what you're saying. There are experts out there that are what we call them boomers, and they're going around looking for this job. One of the things I might suggest is if you make that interim job, that one-year job, it's going to save you money because you're going to get the top guy that wants to come through for a year, and that gives you a lot of time to come up with a perfect fit for permanent. It may be, yeah, but I think if you make that a little longer term, you're going to attract a lot more people than you would be in 6 months or 3 months.
Yeah, I don't know if I would want to put a timeline on it. I'd like to see the quality that we get. I'd like to try to make it a little tighter than that.
So I'd be prepared to move staff's recommendation with the only modification being that form a subcommittee to help staff with the process, but then the operations board makes the recommendation to the candidates. I think the advantage is to the flexibility that we have by doing this outside of one of our agencies with PERS is probably well worth pursuing at this point.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. So did we get, was there anybody from the public want to comment on this? Yes.
Well, I just have one comment. Just be cautious in terms of the setting of this, because you actually have a pool of, for instance, retired city managers and CEOs that are very interested or in the PERS system of coming back in, but they are limited to 1,000 hours a year. So if you want to tap into that pool of administrative expertise for setting up the agency, it really does have to be limited to half of your position.
But don't close the door. I'm just saying, there are firms out there that
Comment?
Yeah, Andy Shemakoron from Aromas. When you go out for either the temporary or the permanent CEO, I think there should be a role of some kind of community advisory board input in the selection process and in defining what kind of CEO you're really looking for. My experience, I served on the Aromas San Juan School Board, and I've served on many union boards, and often what you end up with when you have a chief executive in government agencies or public agency is a person who's not necessarily that responsive to what I would call the rank and file, the average person. They're more used to talking on a rarefied level to the folks who are their decision makers around them, and it leads to a disconnect with the real priorities of the public on this score. And I think from the very beginning, if you want to set this on the right course, you involve the public in defining the role, and you look very specifically for a unique kind of CEO for both interim and permanent that's ready to work with a broad public with very diverse communities. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to address us on this? Okay.
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. Yes, we do. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The motion, go ahead, Jamie. Yeah.
So the motion was to accept staff's recommendation with a minor change to that we made, a subsequent motion, I guess, appoint a subcommittee of the operations board to assist staff with the recruitment process, but that the candidate evaluation and recommendation would come from the full operations board for a decision by the policy.
Second.
The second by the change.
Question, will that committee be appointed today?
I would assume if the motion passes, then the next action would be to look for volunteers in the
Volunteers,
operation.
yeah.
And I have a clarifying question. It sounded to me from what staff said that, because I also share the concern that 2 weeks is an awfully short period of time. I know we're in a hurry, but it sounded as though staff might actually be able to stretch that to slightly over 2 weeks, or I wasn't clear.
I think if we would need that, we would need to come back to your board at least.
And you're going to start advertising today.
We're going to start working today, so
That's
to
what
get
I
that
mean.
going.
Okay, thank you.
So in the motion, are we recommending that the advertising be for a non-PERS contract employee and for what period of time? I think that was still kind of hanging out there. So what's the advertisement of that individual look like?
So what we're doing is a request for qualifications. We will not, we're doing it as a contract, so we are not needing to mention anything about the retirement at this point. What I would suggest is that we leave that open and not exclude those who may have the expertise, who may be retiring, just to allow the pool to be a larger pool. But that doesn't mean that when you make a job offer, you have to make it to somebody that is a retiree, right? We can do it such that somebody meets the criteria that this organization needs.
We need to see the candidate pool, yeah.
Candidate pool. I would suggest not limiting it at this point.
Okay, we have,
I think, I agree and I'll support the motion to get us going, but I think that the very next board meeting, we need to establish our interest in whether it's a personal agency or whether it is going to be functioning as a non-PERS public sector institution. And it needs to be defined fairly early, and I think the next board meeting is the appropriate place to talk about that. Because that drives the budget, and it drives the perspective, and it drives the recruitment. So I think that needs to be determined next meeting.
So Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that would be something you need to do when you make that permanent CEO hire, and for the interim, it's not as critical, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, and that is part of the reason that I think the interim idea came up, was that, you know, you didn't have to jam through a very big, long-term discussion. You could hire under contract while all of these other critical decisions were being made. Because the reason that I went a little white when you said that was that there's a number of other things that this decision affects other elements of employment policy that would be part of the scope of work for this interim CEO, along with HR, whatever, to develop a whole body of employment policy and benefits packages, including the PERS question. So the idea would be that it would be part of a bigger picture and come to the board, first probably to the operations board and then to the policy board. So this interim approach allows us to move ahead and take the time we need to get all the rest of those things in place. So I'm not sure, to be honest, that it would come back in June, but it will be ASAP.
Mr. Chair, if I may just throw in one thing.
So if the board today is asking the board to come back as an agenda to talk about, I think that's important that this agency start with listening to the board's perspective, that we should talk about it. So I think it should be agendized.
For decision?
Well, I think we need to have at least a first meeting where it's agendized, where
we can,
those that are on the board are coming, thinking about it, and thinking in terms of their perspective of which agency they would like to form.
we can do that, we can do that on item number 15, as well, the request for future agenda items. I think that'd be the right way.
And Mr. Chair, I'm building on what Mr. Smith said. I think it's important we figure out which counties and which cities and when they go dark, because setting up a policy board meeting when you guys are out may not work on that timeline.
That's item 14.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. I'm going to call for the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered unanimously. Okay, we will now go to,
I think the subsequent
excuse me.
action would be to appoint a subcommittee of
I'm sorry.
the operations board.
Yeah.
Are there any volunteers?
Are there any volunteers?
How many are you looking for? 3?
I would think 3 is reasonable.
It can't be more than a quorum of the operations. It can't be
I'll jump in.
3?
I'll volunteer.
We have Carlos.
Ray,
Great.
Jamie.
Mr. Chair, I'll put my name on that.
This is operations.
This is operations. Can we have 4?
We have Ray, Jamie, me, and Charles. There's 4 of us. That's 4.
Okay.
That's fine. That's not a quorum.
4, yeah, that's 4 to 11. Okay, do we have that? Okay. Have it now?
It's fine.
Thank you.
Good job, I will say.
All right, now we will move to item number 11. report on and authorize next steps for credit and banking negotiation. Edith Driscoll, our treasurer, tax collector, well, she's a lot more things, but
Yeah.
in Santa Cruz County. She's,
Good morning, while it's still morning. Again, I am the auditor, controller, and treasurer tax collector for Santa Cruz County. I'm hoping you can all hear me. Just to provide some basic details regarding this item and to review the recommendations. An RFP was issued. The scope of the RFP was to seek proposals to provide funding for startup costs, comprehensive banking services, as well as to provide a line of credit and or medium-term fixed loans as necessary. A total of 3 responses were received: Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority, Bank of the West, and River City Bank. The county formed an evaluation committee made up of myself, staff from Santa Cruz County, staff from the City of Capitola. The evaluation committee selected River City Bank's proposal. It was determined to be complete and of good quality and meets the basic needs set forth in the RFP. Recommendations as reflected in the board packet. 1, accept report and direct appropriate staff to begin discussions with River City Bank to establish credit and banking services. 2, direct staff to develop credit guarantee documents with River City Bank and primary credit guarantors and prepare standard agreements to support the credit guarantors. 3, direct staff to return to the operations board in August with final credit terms and agreements for approval. That concludes my comments.
thank you. Any comments from the board? Yes.
Yes, it mentioned the Bank of the West was incomplete, and so they were declared non-responsive. Then it says only 1 responsive proposal was received. So was the Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority not responsive?
They chose to respond to only one part of the RFP.
So were they deemed non-responsive?
Sort of.
Yes.
I'm just saying, what was the disposition or the reason that Salinas Valley was not picked?
They were not non-responsive. The RFP allowed for different types of responses, and they responded to only one area of the RFP. Bank of the West responded to one area of the RFP and left the second area for negotiation, and the third was River City Bank, which was the most complete.
Okay, so Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority was not chosen for startup capital because of?
Complete.
I worked under someone else here.
I wasn't an evaluator, but I will speak. I'm Peter Dellis with County Economic Development. Sorry, I'm suffering from a cold. But there were 3 responses. In order to qualify for the full banking relationship, respondents were required to respond to all 3 components of the RFP, right? And so River City Bank did respond to all 3. Bank of the West did not, which is why they were only bidding on the banking component, which is why they were non-responsive. Salinas Valley did respond only for the startup financing, but when comparing the terms between the 2, River City Bank was superior.
All right, thank you very much.
Peter had the role of the hands-on work with the RFP. My role was more just an evaluator. Any other questions?
Yes.
Who's the bank that Monterey, that Santa Cruz County uses?
Bank of the West.
Bank
And I
of the
believe that they, that could be why they chose to respond. But we were sure to reach out to every bank that every one of you works with, because we wanted to make sure that we covered everyone's banks that they have a relationship with.
Yes. Trina?
Did we at all ask other CCAs? I think River City or the River Bank is one that's common with the other CCAs for financing. Have we reached out to the other CCAs to find out other banking services or businesses to finance these lines of credit?
So I can answer that a little bit. We looked to their RFPs as we were creating our RFP. And again, River City Bank is the bank for
Marin County and
Yes.
Silicon Valley use River City. My understanding is that Sonoma is moving forward with from River City's response to Sonoma's moving forward with a banking relationship with them. The thing is that CCAs are kind of a new credit. It's a new type of agency, and most banks aren't really familiar and comfortable with it yet because there's not a lot of history, right? Where River City is now comfortable because they're working with several agencies. They're building their portfolio in this area. Bank of the West did not respond on the line of credit because they were just uncomfortable with the credit and not understanding how the financing works. Right.
Thank you.
I just want to wrap up with
Yes.
a couple things, just in terms of process, again, given what we're trying to achieve here to move things along. There's 2 layers to, there is a recommendation to move ahead, but what will happen is, if approved, there will be a core staff team that works with the bank on negotiating terms and dealing with the primary credit guarantee arrangement, as has been discussed previously. At the same time, we will be working to develop an interagency agreement that would be between the primary bank guarantors and the cities within each county, so that hopefully that whole package comes back before the operations board for approval over the summer. So again, there's a few things that are going to be happening in parallel here. Answer any questions about that.
Here, Chair. Yes.
Just to get some clarity, because the credit guarantee will have budget implications for all the participating jurisdictions. So it would seem appropriate that before you begin negotiating, you get direction, at least from the operations board, to get some understanding on how the respective jurisdictions want to participate in the credit guarantee, rather than have it come back already negotiated, and then collectively we're obligated to go back to our boards and councils and say, pick a
So one of the conversations Sean and I had was my peers, the auditor controller from Monterey, Mike Miller, as well as from San Benito, Joe Paul Gonzalez, might all want to weigh in on this process and join the process of gathering these documents with River City Bank.
That's a good idea, but again, I would suggest, and I would look to my peer city managers, do you want to participate or give some direction with respect to the credit guarantee?
I think this is a point of
Wait.
contention that we had in our,
Just-
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
The credit guarantee was negotiated in the lead-up to the JPA agreement, which you have all approved, and it's in Article 5 of the JPA agreement.
As a pro rata share.
As a so it will be, then the
No.
credit arrangement will be a pro rata share.
No, you have to read 5.3.4. It was the subject of hours and hours of negotiation. And it's more complicated than that.
But it's a per seat basis, not a per capita basis.
No, we left it open. So if you look at 5.3.4, you'll see that about midway in that paragraph, the credit guarantee will be distributed on a per seat basis. Shared seat members will divide the credit among the cities sharing those seats. We're not telling you how to do that. That was left open so that you can negotiate amongst yourselves.
If I might help, sure. I think the way it works is those that have permanent seats, you get all the seats, you split it up, those that have permanent seats, that's your portion. The shared city seats, those agencies, where it's 3 or 4, have to get together and figure out how to split that share, pro rata share. I believe that's what was finally discussed.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Yes, correct. However, the mechanics of this are proposed that the 3 cities, the 3 counties would be the primary guarantors with the bank, because the bank doesn't want to have 19 guarantees. So it's a 2-tiered structure where it's proposed that the counties will step up on behalf of their member cities to be the primary guarantor. At the same time, there will be an interagency agreement or MOU developed that would be in place between the cities and the shared seat and the county on behalf of their cities, so that the bank is dealing with 3, and then those 3 are going back out to their member agencies with an MOU that protects them. So there's 2 things at play here. That's the structural.
But that's not in that's staff proposal.
Well, the part about the credit guarantee being distributed on a per seat basis, that part is in the JPA. The mechanics of how that is done was decided during the negotiations by the governance group committee. Now, that was the recommendation, and was the idea that each county would take the credit guarantee for their cities. And the reason for that was because you are able to, your staff had an agreement, had a model agreement with your cities about how you've done that before. And so we agreed with that. We thought it was a great idea, but that actual mechanics hasn't been approved yet. That part is still, that part was in concept and was still to be developed. But the concept was that the 3 counties take the credit guarantee, work out an agreement with your cities for that interagency per seat line of credit agreement. So that part we could meet in the operations board if you'd like to work out that piece of it.
And that's what I'm suggesting, because that's a decision that we would have to bring back to the Board of Supervisors. It has budget implications, and then we would need to get an appropriate form of agreement with those jurisdictions.
Yes, the idea was that that agreement would always go back to your respective board, because they're going to have to approve that actual credit guarantee agreement.
But we like to respect their discretion for the agreement.
And if we can, we'll develop a standard MOU interagency agreement, but if that's not possible, then we won't.
Just a question about that then, are we still on the August timeline to get everything wrapped up? My concern is, we need this money to pay our CEO who we hope to have on board by then.
Let's pass the recommendations.
All right,
we'll start
take it
working
from
today.
there. Okay.
So I move that we approve the 3 recommendations with their relevant tasks included in our staff report.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, second by Commissioner Thompson.
Good question here.
An additional question, I don't really call for public comment. Are you also saying that in the end it would just be an operations board decision? Because this seems like a major financing decision ultimately that would then need to go to the policy board under, under the joint powers agreement, the issuance of bonds, major capital expenditures, or any other financing. I would think that after the operations board would be making a recommendation to the policy board ultimately to, ultimately approve all these arrangements. Just looking for clarification on that.
If I may, I think the intent in 5.3.4 was that every seat takes its pro rata share if it's a full seat or if it's a partial seat. And if each county wants to again negotiate that differently with their cities on how they want to take their credit guarantee, that's up to you all. If the CEO for Santa Cruz County and the cities want to together and discuss that, we can do that. But it's clearly in here that we would take one pro rata share of Watsonville because we have one seat. So.
I'm also concerned about moving forward expeditiously. So I think that by the fact of the matter is that these agreements among the county, Santa Cruz, the city of Capitol, the city of Watsonville, city of Santa Cruz, they're going to have to go to our legislative bodies, our city councils anyway. So saying it goes from operations board to policy board and then to all the jurisdictions, it makes me concerned about the line of credit and actually being able to meet the timelines. So I guess the one stop we could take out there would be the policy board, but we know it's going to go to every elected in the region anyway. Sean, is that
I don't want to arm you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
This credit guarantee agreement will also include, hopefully, the long-term financing arrangement as well. It would be the startup credit relationship, banking relationship, as well as the idea that we're going to go with them for the long term. So I think it has to go back to the policy board ultimately. So I think it'll be operations board forming an agreement. Each jurisdiction will have to approve it ultimately, and then the policy board will have to approve it. Now the timing of how that works, I'm not sure, but I think the policy board for sure will have to approve it because of it's a major financing decision.
I thought when every entity signed on to the JPA, they knew what the dollars were going to be for the character. I thought it was a reasonable finance assumption. You approved the JPA. Why are we going back to it now and telling them something different?
Yeah, the JPA does include the general terms, but this is the specific agreement with the specific dollar amounts, which are not in the JPA. So this will be the actual specific dollar amount, specific agreement with each county and with the banking institution, with each city. So those specific agreements have to come back to each governing board.
So it's a process. So, any other questions from the board or the public? Any other questions from the public?
I'm Rosa Kucic. I'm actually the relationship manager for River City Bank, and so I just want. I'm the relationship manager at River City Bank together with the proposal, and thank you guys for evaluating it, and it's really exciting to be here today. I want to kind of go back on Sean. You kind of hit a good point where the timing. My experience with working with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, the thing that held up the credit availability was all of the back and forth between the various JPA members on the guarantees, and so I like the approach that you've recommended with just the 3 counties being included, and then having the MOU kind of as an ancillary agreement to that, and happy to provide you with kind of a draft guarantee agreement that we've used prior. And so, yeah, that's it. All right, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Yes?
I just want to echo what Ray said. When this came, I'm the alternate for City of Marina. When it came to the City of Marina, the representation was we get 1/4 vote, 1/11 of the board. Our share is 1/4 of 1/11, and our responsibility financially was to guarantee 1/4 of 1/11 of the obligation. So what I'm hearing now is that they want us to go negotiate with the other 3 representatives that share this chair. That is very different than what the council accepted and voted and agreed to in accepting the JPA as written and as proposed to us. Gina was our presenter, Jenny, excuse me, was the presenter, and that's what we understood and voted on. So I want to echo that.
And just a short caveat, there was a $70,000 figure that was the best estimate at the time, so that gave each jurisdiction, whatever their ballpark number was, a real good feel for the ballpark that they were approving at the time.
Yeah, the amount that you were talking about is laid out in the JPA. That is not changing. That's in the Joint Powers Authority. It's as it was presented to you. It's by seat, and then so every seat gets 1/11 in effect of the credit guarantee, and then within that seat they divide it equally, right? So that amount is total. We're talking about just the mechanics of doing the agreements between the cities and the county, and the counties and the bank. So the amounts and the general structure is laid out in the JPA. It's very clear how that amount of money will be distributed. It's just we're talking about the mechanics of how we're going to do the actual credit guarantee.
So the word negotiation, I think, misled me.
Okay.
I think that it wasn't clear.
Okay.
So is there anything to negotiate, or is it already clear?
Well, the part to negotiate is the actual credit guarantee between the counties and the cities, and whether the counties are going to be willing, how that side guarantee is going to be between each county and each city, what that agreement looks like, and whether each county is willing. We had committed earlier, now we're assuming every county is still willing to take the credit guarantee for their cities with the bank. So it'll be the bank to each of the 3 counties. That'll be the primary credit guarantee, and then each county will have a side agreement with its cities, the cities in its county. That's the part we're talking about negotiating.
Thank you.
I'm not sure Monterey County ever strictly negotiated that. And that now I hear there may be some problems between the cities, how they're going to, especially with Delray Oaks not coming in, and then we're still on the hook for the line of credit. So, Lou?
Supervisor, you're absolutely correct. This issue was discussed, and it was discussed in context of the representative number of votes, that there would be a weighted vote and so forth. but there was never a concrete agreement on how the credit risk would be shared. So the JPA is clear about the allocation of credit risk amongst all the members. And I think what is being said is that is not changing. But Santa Cruz staff is now recommending, and the bank prefers not to deal with 11 different jurisdictions. They want to only deal with 3 jurisdictions. So in effect, what is being asked is each county is being asked to serve as the guarantor for the cities within its jurisdiction. The implication here, it's not a cash outlay, but each jurisdiction must set aside and reserve those funds, and it has a budget impact. And so the concern for us this year is we have $55 million in storm damage, we have positions that are currently not funded, so this will be a current year budget impact for the county of Monterey. So we're not giving money away. So what is being asked for us is it's being asked that the counties, each of our counties, if you will, front the money for the cities for this purpose.
If I can clarify from the city perspective, I'm not asking, I'm not gonna be recommending to my council, Monterey County, to front any money. I'm gonna be recommending to my council for us to back credit guarantee that Monterey County will be providing. So we will, because when we agreed to pay on this JPA, and I think we're just discussing semantics here, is we knew our fiscal obligation. We knew the fiscal backing that we were providing. I don't think none of the cities are saying that, showing up, they're saying, no, we're not going to back that. We know we have to back that. Now, the mechanics of that is we have to enter into an agreement with Monterey County to give Monterey County certainty that we agree to set it aside or whatever we're going to do, so Monterey County is protected, so they're not left holding the bag on $2.5 million, their share of $2.5 million for Monterey County. So I don't think none of these, speaking for South, for Salinas Valley South, we know what we signed up to back. We're not saying we're not gonna do that. We just gotta work out the mechanics.
And it's the same here.
So I'm not gonna ask the county to carry our burden on the $55 million that you guys already have prepared.
And Renee, if I just, not to drag this on too long, but just to clarify, we fully intend that you would hold firm on your commitment. But from a budgetary standpoint, my point is that if the county needs to serve as the guarantor, we have to put those funds in a dedicated account. Okay?
I disagree with you.
I don't.
Yeah, there's no requirement to actually have a cash set aside. It's a contingent liability. And so the way that it's worked with other CCEs and Riverbank, there's been no requirement that we actually put a set of cash and set it in a separate account or anything. It's a general contingent liability, no cash set aside required.
But we still have to report that on CASA as a debt and obligation.
It's a contingent. That's part of the discussion. It's contingent liability. So it's not a true reportable debt.
Okay. So those are the kinds of things that I would suggest that we discuss with the operation.
And this has been Silicon Valley Clean Energy has gone through this very detailed, and so we looked at it, and so we know it's a contingent liability. It doesn't go on your CAFR, doesn't require cash set aside, and there's a model we can follow.
And Santa Cruz also believes it does not require that it needs to go through these new county debt policy committees that recently went on.
Okay, so those are the kinds of things that we'd like to confirm with our auditor's office.
Mr. Chair, it's irrelevant of what relationship a county has with all its local jurisdictions, because the bank all cares is the relationship of those 3 counties, correct? So if there's an in-writing per se, hardware, software, if there's something going on between the county and all those cities down there, the bank doesn't care, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz that is going to be ultimately responsible to that bank. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So regardless if we decide to make a vote today or not, and it doesn't include the relationship we're going to have with the local small cities and counties, the bank doesn't care, as long as there's a resolution and a vote that the 3 counties will be ultimately responsible at the end of the day.
So my motion stands, but if there's any suggested amendments that cover the policy board role or to cover the county to jurisdiction process, we can make those amendments to the motion.
And if I may, through the chair, it's simply that the policy board is engaged and participates in a meaningful way in the negotiation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to add that we approve the policy board's engagement in a relevant way.
I'll second the motion for discussion.
Okay, so.
There was another second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second, yeah.
But I think all of that is being spelled out in the JP.
I do too. I don't know. I don't know that it's necessary, but so we have but we do have a motion and a second to that. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure it's necessary. So I might be voting against.
I just want to pass the motion, or is that
Yes.
everybody happy?
I think it's not, just because I don't think it's necessary, I probably wouldn't be supporting it.
I concur that it's redundant because the JP does spell that out.
So do you want to?
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure we're not stepping on our own feet. Because
I do
I'm
too, I think-
tight, and I just keep looking over at staff and seeing worried looks, so.
No worries.
No worries?
What a smart. I heard that it was coming to the policy board anyway, so that this is redundant, so I don't see how this hurts. I'm
Okay.
willing to leave it in or take it out. I just want to move on.
We're gonna have a. So you want to stick with the motion of the second?
He's lobbying for this, guys.
I don't know if we have a second at this time with that amendment.
Well, again, I think the amendment is redundant. I think we are making sure that everything does get spelled out, and I know that this has been hashed out in other agencies pretty fluently, and I'm fine with the motion to remain as item number 11 on here.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Okay. Did you have one more comment? I have some questions. I just don't know that it's necessary. But okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Aye. Better take a look at how we're going to do this thing. You better have a hand count, or well, yeah, let's be better. Okay, all those ayes, raise your hand. Favor the motion? Okay, passes, 13 votes. Okay, we'll go on to the next item.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing. Just like we had just a minute ago, we had some volunteers for the ad hoc operations subcommittee. We do need some additional support for these discussions around negotiating with the bank and then the interagency agreements. It was suggested that the auditor controller of each county would want to be involved. That's a suggestion, not necessarily set in stone, but it'd be good to know that so we can get moving on this. Do you guys have to go back to your auditor controllers, or is there elected officers?
They're independently elected.
That's right.
Unless there's other finance directors, we just need to create a small group that's going to help us push this ball forward with the banking and credit.
I think, so you're just asking for volunteers to do that?
Unless you guys prefer us to follow up and call you and recruit you.
Okay, was there anybody? You have volunteer?
And I'll volunteer to ask for auditor controller as well.
Okay, yay.
Got a volunteer?
Others?
I'll volunteer.
Carlos?
Carlos?
I'll ask my auditor controller too.
Do we have anyone from San Benito?
Yeah, we'll get Joe Paul. Ray and I, we'll take them out to cheap lunch and we'll
Cheap Okay, thank you so much.
That would be number 6. Daddy's City Diner.
That's
Okay.
hilarious. Thank you.
Don't lose it now, we're almost there. We have discussion of officers for policy and operations boards. Carol?
All right, so this discussion item on the agenda is a report outlining the election process for both the Policy and Operations Board Chair and Vice Chair, as well as the Secretary and Auditor Controller. You would want to refer to sections 3.9.1 through 3.9.4 of the JPA. If you have any questions. but it states that the policy board shall elect a chair and a vice chair from among themselves who will preside over the policy board meetings. The vice chair will serve in his absence. The term will be for 1 year with no limit on the number of terms to be held by either. Similarly, for the operations board, shall select a chair and a vice chair from among themselves who will preside over the operations board meetings, and the vice chair again will serve in the absence of the chair. The term again will be for 1 year with no limits. The term will be for 1 year with no limit on the number of terms. Each board shall appoint a secretary who will take the meeting minutes, and each board shall maintain all official records for the authority. And lastly, the policy board shall appoint the treasurer and the auditor. So staff is proposing that the election of the chair and vice chair positions for both the policy and operations board be brought to the next meetings in June or July. In the interim, interested members of the board are asked to self-nominate by submitting a letter of intent with background information to me, and my email address is included in the agenda item, by no later than close of business on May 17th of this year. Submitted nominations will be distributed to the respective board for consideration prior to the next meeting. Elections for the secretary and treasurer positions are also planned for that meeting, and interested candidates again may self-nominate by submitting a letter of intent and background information again to me by May 17th, close of business.
Okay. Yes, Carlos?
We were hoping that one of the jurisdiction's finance directors would be volunteer to serve as the interim or the treasurer slash auditor of the organization. So I'm just throwing it out there for all of you to nominate. Think about nominating your finance director or administrative services director. We're going to need some support at a fairly high level for at least this interim period until the interim CEO comes on and then hires their own finance director and so forth. So it's just we're talking a few months period, but during this credit guarantee period, it'll be important. Thank you.
Did you want to add?
No, we're
next month.
Yeah, we're going to bring that back.
Yes.
So I just wanted people to think about it
Okay, so we will. Anybody who would, yes.
So you just need for approval of the process?
Yeah.
Looks good.
It's just a report that we have, and to people submit their names if they would like to be at either of these offices, either of those boards.
I have just a comment.
One comment?
Yeah, so I think the process is good. I hope that when we're looking at who we're going to actually approve as chair and vice chair, that we look at possibly, I mean, there may be other models, but I was thinking if a city rep, for instance, is the chair, that there be a county rep that is the vice chair from a different county. You know, we mix it up a little bit, and although there are no term limits, I just think it would be nice if we were committed to sharing the leadership around, whatever that might mean, because there are no rules of the road spelled out, so we'll just kind of take it as we go. But I just wanted to put that out there as something to consider as we think about who we select and how.
And I think I think that it would be good if we had a rotation among the counties. It could be a city or a county representation, but not have one county there for 5 years. We're going to do this every year or every 2 years, or whatever the case may be. That it be one county this time and then a representative from that county or a city in that county of a different county. So we have different representation sharing this. Yes?
Yeah, I would echo that. Bruce, I think that's how AMBAG and the Air District has functioned, and we have some real good examples there. That diversity really is a good practice. So I don't know if we need to write that in or if it's a cultural kind of accepted practice.
I think that'll be the process of
Yeah.
the report that comes back next month.
That's good.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think we should establish it today because whoever wants to run for chair.
You know, we can't do it because it's not on the agenda.
Got it.
Specifically.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
I know we're getting here in the schedule, but is the operations board going to meet before the policy board, or are we going to do this again at the same time in a month or two?
That's item number
14.
Right, that's why I know it's on the agenda, but I'm just wondering if the operations board is gonna meet before we get back together again, then I think the operations board needs to have an interim chair right now as well. Otherwise,
Well, I don't think we can do it because it's not on the agenda, but you can do it at the operations board meeting. That'd be,
The idea was to have the election of officers for the operations board in June, which is right now what we're targeting for your next meeting, and then policy board would be in July, either at its own meeting or as a joint meeting. That's what the current thinking is.
okay, any other questions from the board? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, was there intent to adopt bylaws? So wouldn't that all be incorporated in the bylaw document? The order of chair, executive committees, and all the infrastructure you need?
I think that's yeah.
Yes,
That'd be the
eventually.
way to wrap the whole thing up.
Eventually. So some CCAs have bylaws, some don't. It will be up to, your board to decide, and maybe this can be a matter for the operations board to decide whether or not you want to do that, or if the JPA agreement is adequate as your constitution, supported by board policy. So that's not a decision that we've made yet, but we could add it to the agenda if you wish. Go either way.
We could, I think we'll talk about that when we get to 15, but I think we'll probably put it on the future agenda as soon as possible. Any other comments from the public? Any more comments from the board? Okay. Move on to item number 13, a report to provide the direction regarding the contractor support. Excuse me, Carol. Yeah, I see that. Go ahead.
So, thank you. So
Ms. Johnson.
this discussion item is about early operations contract support. And leading up to launch, it's been necessary for Monterey Bay Community Power to utilize local staff from member agencies as well as consultants from that have worked, as well as outside consultant expertise. So what we are contemplating is that vendor selections will include, and some of these items have been touched on already, technical and energy services that would include analyzing load data, submitting the implementation plan to the CPUC. The next item of support would be for community outreach and marketing efforts to continue to provide ratepayers with information that will enable them to make an informed decision. Implementation and operation support will be required by existing interim staff and the future CEO in the areas of governance and administration, as well as data management and call center services, which will include managing customer account data, switching, billing and payment settlements, reporting to customers, and processing opt-outs. So the County of Santa Cruz has already engaged vendors in the first 3 sets of these services. We've engaged Pacific Energy Advisors for the technical energy services, Miller Maxfield for community outreach, and Lean Energy US for implementation and operation support. We are presenting 2 options here before you today for your consideration. Option A is to update the scope of work, amend and transfer existing contracts to PEA, Miller Maxfield, and Lean from the County of Santa Cruz to Monterey Bay Community Power. And because we don't have an existing contract, issue a new RFP for data management and call center services. Option B is to issue new RFPs and negotiate new contracts for some or all of the service categories. Our staff is recommending option A. We've been pleased with the experience we've had with these vendors, with their technical advisory implementation plan that was drafted, and with the other vendors as well. And by doing this, we would decrease time in going out to an RFP, as well as the administrative burden, and continue the momentum that we already have going. Option B would require an RFP process and contract negotiations that would take additional time.
I just speak, I think that the way we've been proceeding up to now, and this is a different type of agency from any other that's ever been formed, so I think that the personnel, the companies that we have now have done a great job, and I think it just keeps the momentum going too. Unless there's a good reason to change, I think we ought to stick with option A. Yes, sir?
I just think option B should be the first agenda item for the new interim CEO, if you're going to have one. I agree things have been done very well with the existing people, but I don't think it would be prudent if we didn't put out an RFP to get that done on a permanent basis.
I think we could do
That would be the best bang for the dollar. So I think it should be, I don't know how to put the motion there, but agree to do it like we're doing it.
Louder.
To agree to continue on the way we are, but very soon, probably right after we pick our chief operating officer, the RFP should go out for contracting this work out, so that we're sure that we're getting the best bang for the dollar.
I agree with everything Ray said, and I have a question. How much would the option B delay be? Would it be 2 months? Would it be 5 months?
I would probably say between 3 and 4. I mean, especially if we're talking about issuing all of these RFPs at the same time. You know, the staff time to develop them, review them, come back to the boards.
And the staff that would do that work, is that the same staff that would be doing other implementation project work?
Are you asking if the staff who would be reviewing the RFPs would be?
Yeah, does this stress the bandwidth of the staff who are doing other work?
Yes.
Am I looking at the staff? Thank you.
I've had plenty of support, but yeah.
Councilman.
Just a comment and question. So I am, or actually 2 comments. I apologize that I keep closing my eyes and pushing on my face because I'm getting a migraine and trying to stop it. We can make it through this meeting. So, you know, my comment would just echo what's been said about the need to really consider option B, and that's not to suggest that the current list of potential contractors won't do a great job and could be selected, but I do think there are plenty of contractors out in our region that may also be interested in working with us. And just echoing the principle of geographical and economic justice, I think is in our interest to not be closed off to option B. I understand the need for efficiency to get this up and running. I just was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the decision for these particular contracts.
If I could just say something. I think that, and I appreciate that. I think we should, get the best out there if there's something better. But I just, under the circumstances, I think a short-term extension of 6 months or something of that nature would probably be the proper thing to do. But, Councilman Smith?
Yeah, I think you said I was going to encourage some type of a motion that would also include a timeline of 6 months to bring it back and then go out to an RFP to give other opportunities to selection. By that time, we will have a CEO in place that could then steer that. And so this would not be a granting of a contract for a long term, but actually it's for 6 months. And that way then the CEO steps in and takes it over and then go out to option B.
Is that a formal motion?
I would put that in the motion.
I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion.
We've got a motion in 3, 6 seconds.
But I think it's a good plan. I mean, every bone in my body leads me to think we need to get this out and open and transparent as quickly as possible. So I appreciate that, and I think that's a good compromise.
Any comments from the public? Come on. Why don't you come on up too? Line up.
Hello everyone, Brennan Jensen with Climate Action Compact.
So I appreciate the discussion that's being had and the urgency for getting contracts in place. We all know that things need to move forward, and that staffing, that continuity is tremendously important to be able to keep making progress. So I do support that. However, I do also want to give a little bit of voice to the option B, precisely from that perspective of being able to provide opportunity for local businesses and services who may be interested in providing these services to be able to inform the process. And also just a reminder that there's going to be really key decisions, obviously, that are happening here in the next 6 to 12 months. So whoever is kind of at that table is really setting the stage for the future of the agency. So I do want folks to just kind of keep that in mind. And then I thought I would just ask a question to Sean. Maybe you could give a little bit of voice to some of the key documents that are going to be created over this next year, and in particular, kind of the implementation plan and the concept around the integrated resource plan. I know that there's a lot of discussion about that during the negotiations. I think that's particularly at issue for some of the stakeholders in the community. Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon, I guess now. My name is Andy Hartman. I'm with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 234. I'm also with the Building and Construction Trades Council. First off, I just want to say congratulations on getting to this point. Quite impressive. I would advocate for option B. I don't think that the RFPs that were released, I think of those 3 vendors, I think Miller Maxwell was actually the only one that responded to an RFP. The other 2 entities, PEA responded to an initial RFP for the feasibility study. So they actually haven't even responded to an RFP for, for the technical and energy services, and nor has Lean responded to an RFP for the implementation operations support. So just based on that alone, I think it would be more transparent, more public. We don't know if we're getting the best price for what the services they're offering. So just in the sake of competition, I would advocate for option B. Thanks.
Anyone else from the public who would like to address this? Any more comments from the board? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to know how were the current resources put in place and what was the process so that we could get a better understanding of that.
So the County of Santa Cruz issued an RFP for technical services in order to do the technical study. I think that was done back in 2015. RFPs were received and reviewed, and Pacific Energy Advisors was selected as the vendor to do the technical study. An RFP was also issued for marketing and outreach. And again, RFPs were issued, they were brought in-house, reviewed, and Miller Maxfield was selected. The only item that didn't go through an RFP process were those services for Lean Energy USA. And if I could make one additional comment, there are existing agreements for those 3 services, but we don't have anything yet for call center and data management services. So an RFP issued sooner than later for that, as opposed to waiting, because we don't have anything currently in place for that.
Sure.
I'm interested in the compromise agreement. I'd like to speak to the idea of continuity at this time. So I'm in support of the compromise agreement.
What is the compromise agreement?
I think it's a 6-month extension.
Yes.
Yes.
A couple of tiny
Yes.
questions.
Right.
Yeah, they were. Is there a contract with Lean Energy that could easily be turned into an RFP as far as scope of work?
I would say no, because the services that they've been providing so far are going to be different than what will be needed over the next 12 months.
So, okay. And then is Lean local? I don't know Lean.
No. Mill Valley. Mill Valley? Miller Maxfield is local.
Okay. And to do the implementation and operation support such as Lean Energy is doing, are you aware of local firms that could perform that?
I am not. No, I don't know if any other county staff is aware.
Okay, well, I am concerned that at least Lean Local didn't go through an RFP. So my compromise would be that there be an RFP for that entity that has not competed and is not local. And if we just go with option A, Lean Energy will be more competitive for the long-term project, which is less likely then that a local firm would be engaged in the future implementation and operation support. So I would like to make a substitute motion similar to the first motion, with the only change being that the implementation and operation support would go out to an RFP.
Yes.
I have a question before.
Speak up, please.
Is that a question before the motion is approved?
Wait. Do we have a second for the substitute motion? Second.
Under the question, parliamentary procedure question, Mr. Chair, how can someone remove a motion on the table with another motion?
Didn't remove it, it's still on the table.
So what we're doing is we're going to discuss and vote on motion number 2 first, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right.
So I still have my question.
Yes, go ahead. Speak up.
So my question is, in regards to the procurement process that was used to retain the vendors in option A, were we using existing procurement policies from the city of Santa Cruz? Do we have a procurement policy established as part of this JPA? That is something that is needed in order to look at some of the geographical or local practices that we want to include as part of our procurement services?
Yes, those 2 RFPs were issued from the County of Santa Cruz and followed our purchasing guidelines.
But as a renovation of the JPA, we don't have.
Right.
Bruce?
Yes.
So a couple points I want to make really quickly. I think everyone needs to be cognizant of the fact that if we don't move forward in a timely fashion on this stuff, is we're not going to make our April rollout. So everybody, I mean, I understand the desire to issue RFPs. Believe me, I'm a city manager. I believe you issue RFPs to get the most competitive rate we possibly can. I think everyone needs to be cognizant of if we don't keep our team in place and keep moving forward hard, we're going to miss our deadlines. So everyone needs to understand the different priorities that are in place here. In addition, these things are pretty new, and there aren't very many firms that have had experience helping local jurisdictions establish 3-county, multiple agency JPAs to purchase power and do this together. Lean is one of the only, I don't know if there's one in Southern California, but one of the very, very, very few firms that does this. So I think everyone needs to be really aware that if we jump ships now, we're probably not going to make that April deadline. And if we can move forward for 6 months, issue RFPs, look and see are there ways to do things better, faster, cheaper, great. But if we cut ties, I think we're really putting in jeopardy our ability to roll out on this time.
Yes.
I just want to say that when I saw this, I was worried because I saw no contracts, no scope of work. I was sort of thinking, uh-oh, we're being asked to approve these right away. The thing that really interests me, I would much prefer to go out to RFP, but I think the time constraint is really of concern. So my interest is going to be to look at the scope of work because I want to make sure that we're getting the very particular and unique services that we need, and I don't know if it's possible when this comes back, but I don't understand exactly how these contractors, what they're going to be doing, because I haven't seen the scope of work, and how that relates to what the County of Santa Cruz staff are going to be doing in support of this, so that you probably know that the lines will be clear, but I don't, and I just want to make sure that people aren't going to be stumbling over each other and that there's the appropriate division of labor. I also, from the perspective of Monterey County, some of my colleagues had concerns that the outreach was not as robust and responsive to Monterey County as we might have liked. So when the scope of work comes, I want to be sure that there is that possibility that Monterey County gets served very well by the, I know these folks have the ability, so I just need to make sure that, we're getting, our residents are getting what they need in terms of outreach. So,
Councilman McShane.
Yeah, no, I would echo Jane's remarks, and I think all of us embrace what you're sharing. We're all very sensitive to local procurement and the benefit of the local model we're really dealing with. To Councilmember Ed's point, we're buying ourselves a little bit of time, 6 months, and though this team is extremely capable, this will just add more excitement to the moving animal that we're riding here. So I think the original motion covers that, and I think as a board, we'll embrace that.
and Mr. Chair, if I could, I just think this is the interim. Let's get up and get started. When we get the CEO, we're going to be looking at what we want our staffing pattern to be for the JPA going forward. We're going to be able to have a lot more to say about it. Right now, we just need to get ourselves in position to be able to offer energy to our residents.
So what's on the table, Mr. Chair?
Well, we have a substitute motion to continue with who we have, except for Lean, and go out to an RFP. Is that correct?
Yes, and in 10 seconds, I just want to say that being this our first meeting, we are setting the stage today on how we vote for sticking to some principles that I think we all believe in.
Okay.
I will support Mr. Smith's position of giving a 6 months concept, which basically means no.
Yeah, yes.
And again, I think that we're hearing a strong momentum about the scope of work for transparency purposes. We should have this available for the community to see what that scope of work is, website or otherwise. Maybe even part of what comes again for our next meeting is what really is the outline for each of these agencies that are doing the service for us that we're paying the money for, that the community needs to be aware of. And then when it goes out there, have a clear message about what the RFP process is going to include, and probably what we're hiring the specialties firms to do, that we don't know what we don't know what they're doing for us. So I think it's imperative, important for the transparency.
Very quickly too, I agree with what you're saying. And there are groups out there that now that we have established this JPA with 3 counties involved and all residents involved, that are going to be gearing up to do this work very quickly. Energy was picked because in Mill Valley, that's the first one that started. So they had the experience at the time. What we're looking at now is that there's people in this room right now that are writing things down. They're going to be, when we establish the RFP, they're going to be in there. It's not going to be the only, they're not going to be the only player. So I think if you give them 6 months to come up with that strategy, you'll be surprised how many people come up with.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to concur with King Parker's earlier comments. And I'm very sensitive to the issues that you're tackling. And I think that's very important. And so to some extent, we've been on a rush. But that's very important for what we're trying to do. And I think your comments were very important also, because there's going to be a lot of localities who are going to want to jump in. So I'm very happy, she's not here right now, with what her group has done. I've seen the preparation, I've seen all the documentations. I think the excellent job has been done, and the choice that came to that was a good choice, basically. And so I'm very happy about that. So I'd like to call a question, I think.
Okay, we'll have to call for the substitute motion first.
Yes, exactly.
And but I think we've gone to the public.
Yes.
Everybody else, okay? So now what we're doing, what the motion is in essence option A, but to go out for an RFP to extend for the 2 Miller Maxfield and Pacific Energy Advisors to continue that for 6 months, but to go out for an RFP for the implementation and operations support, the lean fund, and data management. So that's the motion from Member Delgado. Does everybody understand that all right? We're continuing the the offices of PEA and Miller Maxfield but we're going to go out for an RFP. We would go out for an RFP with Lean. Everybody okay with that? All in favor? I think we better have a hand motion of that. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Okay, that motion fails. We'll go to the original motion, and that is option A for the RFPs, or to continue the work with the companies that we have contracted with. Good. Yes.
Wasn't that with option A plus 6 months?
Correct. 6 months, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
So option A was.
Oh, and plus for for an RFP for the call center. Right. That's
Data management.
got it.
Correct. I mean, that's part of A. So option A, plus putting a timeline.
6 months.
Going out to an RFP within 6 months to establish the vendors that the agency will need.
Right. Everybody clear? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So ordered. I think unanimously. Yeah. No, we got one Delgado against that, okay.
Okay, a little bit more pricier restaurant.
Okay. Now we're going to go to discussion of the regular meeting location. We do want to meet again, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
This is so much fun.
Yeah, this is so much fun. Really, we've gotten through this pretty darn well. I'm really pleased. Thank you very much. We're going to have, I guess, to get an idea, to winnow it down, there's been suggested July 5th, and I'm not sure that's the right one. That's for the joint boards. Probably the 28th and 9th was pretty tight. I think Sean said for our next meeting, but I think this first, let me start with location. I think this location is central. It does, I maybe just have some logistics concerns, possibly, but I think this is as close as we're going to get to the middle of getting people here. And I haven't talked to the Marina Library specifically about this because they don't know when we might be meeting again, but just anybody's idea. I think it's best that we have it as centralized and not move it around, because if we go south, north, or east, or whatever, it's going to be a longer drive for 2/3 of us probably. What's the suggestion?
Second that motion.
Yeah, Marina's good. Marina's good. Yeah, Marina's good.
Give it to the chair's prerogative.
Yeah. If I could, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
You can make, I won't make the motion, but you can.
What, that we meet in
Here.
Marina? Okay. Well, I think, sounds like Marina might be a good location. I'm going to try to suggest a regular day and time. I mean, I think it was suggested in the board report, first Wednesday. Now, July is going to be an issue, and we're going to probably find another time for that. But in general, does the first Wednesday in the morning seem to work, or can we make it work?
Madam Vice Chair, maybe I can grab somebody from the library to confirm that if we agree on a day, we can get the room.
Yeah.
Before we do that,
Right.
I just have one point related to that is I know that when we schedule meetings and we want to televise them, it's relatively expensive when you use a facility like this versus one of our board chambers. So I don't know if Marina would be willing to host in your board chambers. They're already wired and it's set up for easier.
Yeah.
So I just want to toss that out,
Good point.
that everyone's cognizant of the sort of technical challenges of trying to do the meetings in a venue that isn't necessarily as hardwired for that sort of stuff as a board hearing.
That's a good point.
Okay, so you're suggesting,
I don't know.
You're suggesting maybe the Marina Council Chamber.
I'm tossing it out there to Marina.
Yeah.
I don't know how big it is. I don't know if it could seat this many people. It may or may not be feasible.
It's approximately the same size, but it has a dais that takes up some of that room.
Could you seat 10 at the dais? Because I think each individual board has 10.
Isn't the next one a joint as well?
We're anticipating a joint meeting sometime in July, but that the operations board itself would meet in June.
Chair?
Yes.
I would propose that we stay with this for a month or two. We then query what our needs are. There's a couple other options, but I agree that once we land on a place, it should be always in the same place. The only other room that I can think of that's large like this is the Monterey air quality building along Highway 68. But I think with time, we need to calendar it, and we need to bring in the camera piece and the microphone piece to fix that. But I think this room is fine for the next at least 6 meetings.
Yeah.
That way you have
Councilman.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I love Marina. It's awesome. We have a great host and lots of dining options. Honestly, this is wonderful, and I'm sure we can work out the technology piece. I'll leave it up to the chair if we need to vote on it.
I think what we'll do before we adjourn, we'll set a meeting, the date, and then the place as well, and it may well be here.
This day and time is good for me.
Yeah. We're not going to need a motion for this, actually, but we'll keep that in mind. I think the next few meetings, I think it's a good suggestion by Councilman Smith that we stick with Marina until we can be convinced that someplace else is better, fits our needs better. Okay, now I guess we go to the operations board first to meet potentially for June 7th. The operations board. Mr. Bowman's not here too. He's trying to get the room. I don't know if does that fit. That's okay. Anybody? Well, let me put it this way: is there anybody that doesn't work with? Doesn't work for? Let me see if we have an operations board meeting on June 7th, Wednesday, June 7th. Would that work for you, Mr. Bowman? It seems to work for everybody else in operations.
So this is going to be a regular day or just a single day at a time?
Well, this is probably for this meeting, then we'll figure out, your operations group can figure out what's the best time and place to meet. But we've said, Marina, what did they say? Did they say anything to you?
So Patty's here and she can schedule this room. So if you pick your day, she'll go back and confirm and she can talk to those dates. If they're available.
The next would be June 7th.
It'd be June 7th, and that's for the operations board.
June 7th, operations board.
At 9 a.m.
At 9 a.m. at Marina.
And July is TBD. Because we haven't polled. I think July is TBD until we poll the policy board members to know whether July 5th is workable because of the 4th of July. It may not be. And we also may need a little more time to get through the whole CEO thing. So it might be later in July.
The 4th of July is really not a problem because this year the rally is the 29th, 30th, and 31st. So Monday, the 4th is a Tuesday. So you're looking at people coming back off that holiday to come here. It's not a concern because of the rally, but it's a concern that people go on vacation.
Vacation?
That's the trick, is summer vacation is upon us.
So is late June too soon? Is that why we're into July?
When you were gone, I just said late June's been pretty tight. Yeah, that's okay.
I think what we need to do is go back and digest some of the moving parts here. It would be awesome if we could get to late June. But I think, when I think about the policy board reconvening and possibly in a joint meeting, the things that we have to approve would be the interim CEO and get through all that first, and then also possibly next steps on the credit guarantee. So the question is, we could have a meeting. It's a matter of, can we get all those things done with all the various counterparties by the end of June? And I think that's largely sort of dependent on you guys in some ways.
So is the second week of July postponing too much?
I think that's workable. We had talked about that. 12th?
July 12th?
July 12th?
We're talking about the joint boards? no?
Yes, potentially the joint.
That's in this room?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think when you were out, they were saying that you'd like to stay in this room for a little while
So-
until you figure out other options.
Yeah.
So if you just give Patty the date, she'll let me confirm.
Let's look at, let's see, it was July 12th at 9 a.m., 9 to 1. Or, I
think they won't be that long.
No, I hope they're not going to be that. I think it'd be 9 to noon, let's say, though.
You all make July 12th?
And she did confirm the date for the operations board, so that's lovely.
Good. The operations board seems to be fine on June 7th at 9 a.m. here. Okay. The policy board, we're not going to set anything at this point. We're going to see how that, we're going to have another joint meeting, of course, on the 12th. So I think that's, and don't take that wrong when I say joint meeting, you know. So
Yeah.
this day and age, you never know what people are going to think. But
Bring in samples.
You could meet in Delray Oaks.
Okay, so we do have got June 7th, 9 a.m. here for the operations board, July 12th at 9 a.m. here for the joint board. And I would guess we'll put them down from 9 to noon, but I'm not sure how that's on. Do we have any public comments on that? Yeah, on the meeting dates.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Meeting dates? Anybody have any comments on the public meeting dates? Okay, then we'll just set those as is. Okay. Then we have board member and staff announcement, request for future agenda items. And we had a couple of those in the process, and we said wait till item 15, and so here we go. I think Councilman Smith
Yeah,
from
very
Monterey.
briefly, I tried to keep track, but recruitment, I know that's going to come back to the policy board, but recruitment of the CEO, the model, bullet point 2 is the structure of the agency. I think we need to talk in terms of what we envision that this is going to look like based on recommendations from the current advisors we have. I'd like to hear more about the structure moving forward. Then the question of, is it public agency involved in PERS, or do we want to pursue an agency that is not PERS, but as other, and help me out, it's not defined benefits, it's the other one. Defined contribution agency for the employees. The other thing is, whoever's taking minutes to go back through, I know there were other board members that mentioned other things they'd like to agendize.
Executive board.
Executive, thank you, the executive board should be agendized. Executive board's the policy agenda.
Executive committee.
Executive committee.
And I had a couple of items.
Okay.
Advisory board, 1 or more or 0. That point we talked about earlier, the long-term strategic goal of, I don't expect this to be next meeting, of course, but building out the local renewable generation projects and the prevailing wages, local workers, that whole issue that was in item 8. And then bylaws, I'm not sure what we agreed. So if there's anything to do with bylaws that we need to address, like whether we need them or have them, that was it.
The next meeting is a joint meeting. Establish policy.
No, it's operations. The next one's operations, 9 a.m. on June 7th.
Okay, but the 12th, somebody said that's a joint meeting.
July.
July 12th. So when is the policy committee going to elect their officers?
Louder, please.
In
Can't
July.
hear.
When is
The policy committee will elect its officers, chair, vice chair in July.
In July, at the joint meeting.
Yes. Yes.
Question, where did we leave the joint decision-making about litigation? Are we going to discuss that further, or are we going to leave that alone? but it was so long ago. We covered so many different topics.
I think we just tabled it, so.
Okay, we'll see how it rolls. Okay, good.
Well, Mr. Chair?
Just one. You know, when we talk about the advisory boards, when we come to the next meeting, it'd be good to have some ideas of what you want, specify and why. If anybody wants to have those advisory boards, so yes.
So Jay made the comment, it reminded us all, I think we had a pretty strong dialogue about litigation and the role of our operations committee and versus the legal authority role of the policy board. So I think that should be agendized for clarification, whether we change it or not for the JPA authorities. But I think it merits a deeper meaning and understanding and dialogue for all of us to go through that, roles and responsibilities of both of those boards.
Okay, that'll be agendized.
And I do have a very tiny item that I think would be very brief for the next agenda, which would be just an update on the county-city financial agreements, just so we're all on the same page that we're moving where we want to go.
And then I have a...
I have one more thing. Some of these oaths of office have been signed and some are not, they're not exactly correct. And we're going to, if you can sign them, if you haven't done so yet, or make sure that they're done properly, and I'll try to get them all in the back there as you're leaving. But if we don't get it done today, we'll mail them to you.
What I was just going to ask is it possible, maybe it's already there, to get the roster on the website and the, and then I don't know when the video can be uploaded, but it would be great to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe another point, because the roster, needs to be updated, but it might be helpful to have, if people are willing, like, better contact information.
Sure.
I think the number, at least for the city of Salinas, is like the main, you're getting like voicemail hell. You'll never catch me. So for those of us that are on this board that are willing to release your cell number or whatever, however that goes, it might be worth sharing that amongst ourselves, yeah.
And if I can just say, in the beginning of your binder is a contact information sheet.
Saw that.
So if you want to send that information to me, if you're willing to share your personal contact information, I can update this sheet and then send it out.
Yeah.
And that's not for the general public?
No, no, no.
No, maybe like have a private one or something. Maybe we just pass it around, or I don't know how. Maybe we don't have time, but it might be helpful.
Okay, is there any other points that the members of the committee wants to bring up? We will adjourn, and thank you. No, we've already done public comments, so. Public is just for the committee members to put that.
Are we adjourned?
Yes, we're adjourned.
All right.